Let's talk for a minute. Got just moments left. I want to get back to your sentencing approach. Now, when you approach these child pornography cases, what you're describing in many circumstances is an overall concern that you've got with the sentencing guidelines, and particularly that portion of the sentencing guidelines that deals with child pornography cases. This showed up in the transcripts of some of your sentencing hearings, including the transcript of your sentencing hearing in the Hawkins case. I turn to that to page 38, lines 17 to 24 of that transcript, and here's something you say in that Hawkins case. And I believe this was the 18-year-old defendant that you sentenced to 3 months in prison when the lower end of the guidelines range would have been 97. I think the higher end would have been in the 120s or something like that. You said, and in your case, this is you speaking to Mr. Hawkins, in your case in particular, I don't feel that it is appropriate necessarily to increase the penalty on the basis of your use of a computer or the number of images or prepubescent victims, as the guidelines require, because these circumstances exist in many cases, if not most, and don't signal an especially heinous or egregious child pornography offense. I've got a couple of questions about that. Were those, you start out that paragraph sounding like you're making a determination as to him, but then the observations you make in that paragraph seem to apply broadly. Is that right? So that would...
Senator, I don't have the transcript of Mr. Hawkins' case. I recall that I found that case, like all child pornography cases, to be difficult, really difficult. And his case, I recall, was in many ways an outlier in terms of the various considerations that Congress required me to take into account.
But there were prepubescent victims that were at stake in that.
I don't remember how many. I don't remember the circumstances of his actual crime. What I will say is that, consistent with Supreme Court case law and Congress's statute in this area, judges have to take into account a number of factors and the guidelines, which are no longer, I won't say not mandatory. You have to calculate the guidelines. They're no longer binding. And the Supreme Court has said that under the statutory scheme, judges have discretion.
But I'm almost out of time.
Yes.
Here. I want to make the point.
Yes.
Hawkins, as I recall, and as Senator Hawley discussed yesterday, he specifically asked for images of 11 to 17-year-olds. So I don't understand how that can be an instance where that shouldn't matter, and where the fact that he did it with a computer hardly atones for what he was doing, hardly offsets the fact that he was seeking and obtained prepubescent child pornography images. Nor does the fact that the images become easier over time to transmit and receive and store because of computers. I actually think it cuts in precisely the opposite direction that you described. It makes it more severe, not less. I see this as an aggravating factor, and that is of great concern to me. I see I've exceeded my time. Thank you.
You may respond.
Senator, as in every child pornography case that I sentenced, I considered all of the evidence, all of the relevant factors. It is not the same exercise to look at a transcript, to think about guidelines, to not have in front of you the individuals, the victims, the pictures, the circumstances that trial judges have to review in these cases or any cases. I understand, Senator, that there are some questions about records, et cetera. Courts have all of the evidence, and courts have all of the recommendations of various parties, and courts have, under Congress's authority, the responsibility of using our judgment to make determinations that are sufficient but not greater than necessary to comply with the purposes or promote the purposes of punishment, taking into account things like unwarranted sentencing disparities. And it may seem like an easy exercise. It may seem in retrospect, when you look back at a few pieces of data, that courts have not done what it is that they are supposed to do. But what I can assure you is that I took every one of these cases seriously in my duty and responsibility as a judge, and I made my determinations in light of the seriousness of the offense, the nature and circumstances of the offense, the history and characteristics of the defendant, the need for the sentence imposed to promote various purposes of punishment, and all of the other factors that Congress prescribes.
Okay, but you keep resetting that standard, and yet you specifically excluded from consideration the fact that he had requested and obtained images, prepubescent child pornography images.
Senator, I didn't exclude it. I didn't exclude it. What I did was I looked at the guidelines, which is what the Supreme Court requires, and I was making policy determinations as the Supreme Court says that judges are to do.
Look at
in
page
these
38
situations.
of your transcript. It looks to me like you excluded it, and your action sentencing him to 3 months for one of the most heinous offenses imaginable. Keep in mind, because these are transmitted
Senator,
electronically, they're there for years. They re-victimize these victims
Senator,
the rest of their lives.
We're asking everyone to try to stick with the 20 minutes, please. Next is Senator Clover.